Hey friends, it's Hurley from Inklips, and welcome to another video. I hope you all are having an awesome day. Now today I'm going to be sharing some card making life hacks using mini ink pads, as these are becoming more and more popular in our industry, and I really have lots of different fun uses for them that are really unique to the mini ink pads. So I'm going to be sharing those in today's video. And also I'm using the new Nuvo mini hybrid inks. And these come in packs of 3, and I really had fun using them in today's video, so that's what I'll be using throughout the whole video. But I know lots of companies do have mini ink pads. I just found that these worked really nicely. Also guys, be sure to stay tuned till the end, because that's my favorite life hack at the end. I'm saving it till then, so you guys will have to wait just a little while. So for the first hack / tip, I'm going to quickly go through my storage for these ink pads. And this is a really easy way to store them. I know there are a couple different ways out there, but this way you can easily compact them, bring them on the go, or have them in your craft room and keep them there as well, because they're a lot smaller than the larger ink pads, so they're really easy to store. Okay, so most of you are probably pretty familiar with the Mini Distress Ink Tin by Tim Holtz. Now I use this and it fits lots of different brands of mini ink pads, and I find it to be really helpful. So I put non-slip pads on the bottom of those so it doesn't move around when it's in my drawer. And I also deattached the lid, so it usually comes hinged on. You can pull that off, and if you want to travel with it, you can put it back on again. So these are really nice for travel, but it also just really helps to keep it inside your drawer like this. So this little mini plastic insert on the inside really is the magic of this little tin here. So you can easily shove your mini ink pads in those little channels there, and it leaves enough space in between each ink pad so you can easily grab it. But it also really stores them nice and compact inside here. And you can buy just a couple tins, put them inside your drawer, and that way if you want to travel with them, you can pop those lids back on and get right on the go. Now I wanted to quickly compare the difference between the larger Nuvo ink pads and the mini ones that just came out. And it's about 6 times difference. So the mini ones are really nice and small. So if you're tight on space and don't have enough storage for the larger ones, or if you want to save some money, the mini ink pads are a great way to go for you. And that's one of the things that I love about them. For life hack number 2, I'm going to be sharing some ombre stamping. And this is super easy to do with the smaller sized ink pad because you can apply ink to a much smaller area without getting many lines in there. So I'll show quickly how to do this without needing an ombre ink pad or having to invest in that. So to get that ombre effect, I'm starting off with a really solid stamped image here, and I'm going to use my lightest ink color and ink up the whole stamp really nice and even. And then I'm going to go in with my next darkest color, and I'm just going to roll the ink pad right on the edges. And you really have lots of control with these smaller ink pads because you can really see what you're doing. So instead of kind of covering up the stamp with a larger ink pad while trying to do this, you get much smoother results because you can really have control over the little ink pad. So I rolled on 3 colors there, and then I'm going to stamp this down onto my surface, and you can really see that nice and smooth result that we got. And that's just by taking a little bit of extra time and using these smaller ink pads to make sure there are no lines on your stamp once you're done. So then I'll do the same thing here, but with this yellow, I'm going to use yellow, orange, and red, so you don't have to stick with the same color families, and they still blend really nicely if you just kind of roll that color on there. And really don't make any edges with the ink pad. So then I'm going to stamp that down in the surface there. And then I'm going to quickly share one more time here with this little butterfly here. I'm inking it up with a light blue ink, and then I'll go right around the edges with a medium blue. And then for the outside edge, I just grabbed a green and I'll roll that right along the edge. Now I wanted to quickly share here, if you're taking a little bit of time inking, you'll notice I kind of always pull the stamp upwards, and I'm just giving it a puff of warm air, and that kind of rejuvenates the ink. So if you think any of it might have dried, it really makes it nice and juicy again, so you can stamp it down and get a really nice impression. So after I've stamped that whole thing, I'm just going to quickly cut it out with my scissors, leaving a little border around the edge so that I have this kind of fun little strip that I can pop up and make dimensional on my card. So I'm just quickly fussy cutting around that, and I leave a pretty big white border, and then I'm going to stamp this sentiment from the same stamp set that I got the butterfly. It's a Gina StampnFoil set, which I really love, and this is just a sneak peek. I'll be sharing more with this set in the future. So then I'm going to add a little bit of Aqua Shimmer Flow Pen from Tonic, and I'll apply that over all the butterflies because I thought they needed a little bit of extra sparkle and shine, and it's really beautiful in real life. Now, life hack number 3 is a quick, easy, direct-to-paper method where I'm going to share how to quickly color a die cut with these smaller ink pads, and you can get some pretty cool textures as well. So this one's really simple. If you don't feel like pulling out a bunch of coloring mediums, I'm just taking that butterfly die cut here, and I'm just going to run my ink pad right over the top, and I'm doing it pretty lightly so that the center is nice and light, and then it kind of catches the edges so it makes those kind of darker and adds a little bit of shading. And I can even go in with some other colors of inks here and add them right onto the edge to get even a little bit more dimension. So like I said, this one's super simple. You can really have lots of fun with it though, and the sky's the limit with coloring up your die cuts like this and getting some really cool results. Now, life hack number 4, I'm going to quickly share how to do some selective inking. You can use this for different sentiments or also images if you want to just ink up a little portion without having to do lots of masking. Okay, so for this next one, I chose a really simple way to do this and a really easy sentiment. But if you want to do different lines of different colors, you can really have fun with that because you have lots of control with these mini ink pads. So I inked up the kind of font portion of my sentiment with just regular black Nuvo ink. And then I went in with this orange Nuvo ink pad. This is the mini one. So I have lots more control here, and I can easily go in and ink up that little scripty sentiment at the bottom. And again, I'll give this a nice puff of warm air. And then I can stamp that right onto my little card panel here, and I'll stamp it right at the bottom. And I like making sure that my smaller font is in kind of a darker color, but then I love how that word butterfly is in that orange, and it'll kind of coordinate with the rest of the card and the butterfly that will be on there. So then to put this whole thing together, I took a piece of vellum and I inked that up with the hybrid ink by just putting the ink pad on the surface, and the hybrid inks dry really nicely on surfaces like that. So then I'll go in the background here. This is a card base, and then I'm just going to take some clouds that I hand cut from a piece of cardstock, and I'll just ink blend with these mini ink pads onto the surface of the card. So if you are really into inking techniques and things like that, the mini ink pads might be a nice option for you if you're not completely into stamping. That way you still get all the benefits of the ink pads, but you get them in a more portable and smaller form in case if you don't use them a ton, but you still want to have those ink pads for those fun techniques like this. So after I've done that, I've added it all together onto my card base, and then I'm going to add some Nuvo gloss here, and I'm just going to kind of follow the waves of those clouds, and you can create some really fun and cool texture in the background there, and it added just a little bit of extra something. So here is just a quick peek at that final result. Number 5 is definitely my favorite. I'm going to be sharing how to go directly to paper with these and create your own fun geometric patterns. Because they've got that little small square shape, the sky is kind of the limit with this. You can create really fun and colorful backgrounds with it. And I've created a video similar to this in the past. It'll be somewhere up here linked. And I did it with full-size ink pads, but I really love the patterns you can get with these smaller ones as well. Now, like I said, this one's definitely got to be my favorite. I love just using the inks directly to the paper and seeing what kind of cool effects I can make. So here with these mini ink pads, the ink pad doesn't quite go all the way to the edge, so I use that as kind of an area to line up my patterns. So as I'm doing this, I'm just using the ink pad to stamp down on the surface, and then I'll align the last square that I created with the corner of that ink pad to create the next square as I'm going up. So I'm going to create kind of an argyle, I guess, pattern here as I go up, and it'll be kind of a rainbow color coordination here. Now each row that I'm doing, I also fit the little edge of that ink pad into the last square on the other row, so it kind of creates an even texture. And I didn't do any measuring beforehand, but if anything's not quite perfect, I find if you keep going, it's kind of distracting enough that nobody's going to really notice. So here is the final result. You can kind of leave it as is, but I'm going to take it one step further. So I'm going to go in between all these little portions here and finish off the background with even more ink. So I'll fill in some of those colors with some of the darker in-between colors here. And again, I'm just following along the portion. And when you're doing this, you'll kind of notice that the ink pad edge kind of lines up with your other patterns, and you can create some really fun geometric effects. Now in this next card, I didn't end up using this one for a final card, but all I'm doing with this is just creating little peaks by using the exact edge of the ink pad there and just stamping that down on the surface. Now when you're creating your own backgrounds like this, you can play around with how hard you push down onto the surface of the ink pad. on the paper, and that'll vary how much linen texture that you get, because that's the surface of the ink pad, so you can get more or less ink and more or less texture depending on how hard you press on the paper. So you can just kind of practice, and if you don't love a background, you can always throw it away because it's just paper. So that was a lot of fun to create. Now I'm going to take these little Hello speech bubble dies, and I cut it out multiple times out of some cardstock here. This is a fun little Tonic die, and I really love how this looks on cards. It's just a really simple way to add a little something something on a really busy background like this. So I just cut that out of white cardstock, layered it all up, and then I'll add that right onto the center of my colorful card here. And to finish that all off, I'm kind of going to make this look like more of an enamel piece and give it some gloss here. So I'm using some of that Nuvo glaze and just covering the surface with a thin layer of that glaze. And then you want to set it off to the side to let it dry. And once you do, it's super stunning once it's complete, and it really creates a nice focal point to the card. Alright, so I hope you guys really enjoyed that video as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please leave it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to leave your favorite card or life hack down in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions. Or if you have any new life hacks for me, I would love to hear those down below as well, and I might include them in a future video. Also, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of my content, be sure to click that subscribe button down below and you'll be notified every time I post a new video. And that little bell icon next to the subscribe button will ensure you get the notifications as well, so be sure to click that. I hope to see you guys very soon in another card making and crafting video. Bye!